It's a brand new morning.
Good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. I am your co-host this morning, Shenell Felix, and you know whenever you see me sitting here, it's because we're about to have those conversations that you want to have while I ask those questions that you want asked. But before we get into this morning's conversations, as well as our Beneath the Surface series, I want to offer some clarity on a situation. So yesterday you saw that I clarified what happened on Monday when I had that conversation with Assemblyman Nigel Tate, when he indicated that the two Tobago representatives in the parliament, the MP for Tobago East and MP for Tobago West, were quite silent on Tobago matters, particularly one related to the fisher folk. So I said to him, giving credit to the minister and MP for Tobago East, I did see that she did post on her social media pages and she did make a statement indicating that the IOPC is still open to receiving those applications from Tobago fisher folk and that her office at Cast Building was going to help fisher folk to submit those applications. I made sure yesterday to clarify that statement. So today I want to officially retract that statement and offer you clarity. So the office of the MP for Tobago East, Ayanna Webster Roy, is not assisting any Tobago fisher folk in applying for the IOPC's grant to fisher folk. Neither is her office at the Cast Building helping any Tobagonians or providing any application forms to help Tobago fisher folk to apply for the grant. And I want to apologize to the minister, the Honorable Ayanna Webster Roy, for any inconveniences that have been caused by stating and putting out in the public domain that your office was offering help to the fisher folk. So again, I want to say, official from the Tobago Updates family and from myself, apologies goes out to you. So guys, this morning we continue with the Beneath the Surface series, and we have in studio with us this morning a man that I know quite well, Mr. Orlando Kerr. Good morning and welcome. Now, for full transparency, we have worked together quite closely at the Division of Education as well as the Division of Settlement, Public Utilities and Rural Development. And I know you as Mr. Kerr in the division as Assistant Secretary, but we don't know you personally, and we don't know the politician, and we don't know much of the union leader that you were, right? So this morning, as we begin the conversation, getting beneath the surface, not because we work together means that I'm not going to ask you the hard questions. So I am going to ask the questions that the people want to know. And to start off, how did the tutor representative for Tobago end up being a part of this administration?
Let me say good morning to you and your co-host, and good morning to Tobago and your wider viewing and listening audience. That's a question that I even asked myself. At one time, I never had good things to say about politicians. As a matter of fact, I butted heads with many politicians. At the time, Gary Melville, Huey Cadet, and then I think Mr. Charles, Kelvin Charles, in the latter part of my stint as tutor Tobago officer. And I never saw myself as being a politician. Even while I was at the union, some of my colleagues asked me if I was going to get into politics. And I said no. I was even accused of setting the stage for getting into politics when I had like numerous protests, action and so on up at the division at the time. And truth be told, I really did not think that I was going to get into politics. I was approached by other political parties before joining the PDP at the time, and I declined the invitation because I felt that some of the things that I was seeing from the other political party, I really did not want to be a part of that. And I have been on the sidelines of politics for all my life except for now. Because I previously would have worked as presiding officer for numerous elections, and as you would know, to work for the EBC, you could not be politically aligned. So I worked as presiding officer for many years at various elections and stuff. So I really wasn't politically aligned. After the elections in 2021, and I received a call from the chief secretary asking me if I would be willing to serve as a councillor and as assistant secretary in education. I was totally surprised by the phone call, and I said, let me think about it, and I thought about it. I, of course, consulted my wife and one or two of my close friends, and I said, well, I will accept the invitation, because I am a firm believer in, if you're not a part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And I would have spent many of my years criticizing the administration in Tobago, talking about things that we needed to get done, talking about education in particular. And I was given an opportunity now to be a part of the transformation, the solution to some of the issues that were plaguing the education landscape in Tobago. So reluctantly at first, I did accept, the role and the function. And even after I accepted, there were many days that I questioned whether I made the right decision, because, it took me a little while to get accustomed to the political climate, because I believe in certain principles, and sometimes, some of the things that will happen, and some of the false information and the false narrative that you hear out there, sometimes I believe as though I really don't want to be a part of it all. But I think that having children, I think that is one of the major reasons why I decided to stay, because what Tobago are we living for our children? And I think that is one of the reasons why I believe that my calling from God to be a part of this was necessary, and that is why I am still a part of it, even as of now.
All right, Mr. Kerr, I want you to talk to me about that intersection between your role transition and community, because as we are aware, you were appointed Assistant Secretary in the Division of Education, Research and Technology, and then you later transitioned into the Division of Settlements, Public Utilities and Rural Development. How has this shift influenced the way you approach the needs of Tobagonian residents on a community level?
Well, I think that if you have the intention to develop Tobago, regardless of which division you are placed at, you would always try to see the things that you can do that will positively affect the island. And I know that education may be my first calling, and it is something that comes natural to me because of the fact that I would have been a Tobago officer for so many years, and I'm quite familiar with a lot of the issues and so on of the teachers and some of the things that were affecting, the whole education landscape in Tobago. But being at the Division of Settlements, I also am trying my best, and of course rural development as well, because I'm responsible for rural development and public utilities. Again, it's about the service to people. It's about bringing that relief, for wanting of a better word, to many of the persons who are, having challenges on the island. And about finding creative ways to, do the things that you want to do, because of course that we have budgetary constraints and we don't have the kind of resources that we would like. So it was a transition for me. I must say that, I've hit the ground running, because we have a lot of programs that we have started that should be bearing fruit, some of them in the short term, and some of them in the medium term, and some of them in the long term. So that I'm quite happy with the progress that has been made so far in my new portfolio. And I think that Tobago is going to benefit from a lot of the initiatives that, have started since I've joined the Division of Settlements.
And Mr. Kerr, I want you to walk me through what community means to you, because paying attention to most of your media appearances, you always emphasize on the importance of community involvement. What does community mean to you, one? And two, how can you see getting higher engagement in community involvement to really address the needs of housing development and from a project perspective? Because we know that when you look at housing, especially when people apply for a house nationally, you have to wait over 25 years and more just to get one house. How do you see community getting involved to really alleviate that problem?
Well, the community has always, and in Tobago, has always been involved in terms of housing. When I grew up, we always had a system, but I don't know if you're familiar with it, when someone is like, as we say, casting the decking, the whole community comes out and gives them lend hand course, you had to cook a little something and have a little drink and so on for the persons. And that is how I grew up, with someone who is, building a home will get that help from the community. We have moved a little away from it, but I think that even with transition, there are some elements of it that we should continue to embrace, right? Because we know that Tobago has a unique culture. And even in developing Tobago and wanting to move Tobago to a more developed state, we still should hold on to some of the things that make us Tobagonian. And I think that community and community spirit is one of those things that we must continue to embrace.
Yes.
I grew up in a time where the community looked after children, and we are moving away from that, and we are seeing not the rewards, I could say the effects of that kind of, distance from the community where children are concerned. I still, even now, if I'm standing on the roadway and a child passes, I would insist and say good morning to them, so that we are moving away from some of those things. And I think that is the community. That community spirit and that community cohesion is to bring back all those values. Napi Maya said, bring back the old time days. They are something that I believe that we must hold on to. And these are some of the values that we must hold on to. So as you're talking about community, not only at the level of housing, but at the level of a lot of the things that we are asking for. I know that many persons are quick to jump on Facebook and vent their frustration about so many things that are not happening in their community. And there's this hands-off approach that everybody believes that the THA must do everything. But we have to understand, who is the THA? The THA is just the leaders. The Tobago is for all of us. And if we want Tobago to develop in the kind of way that we would like to see, then all of us have a responsibility at the level of our community to ensure that we not only just stretch our hands out every time we need something, but also to give part of ourselves in terms of coming out and assisting and so on. There are many initiatives that, communities can engage in. One of the things that is close to my heart now is the level of littering and so on that is taking place in a lot of the communities. And this is something that doesn't need any great financial injection, where communities can get together and say, listen, we are going to clean up our beaches, we're going to clean up the place. If it is that there are some things that you can do, you can approach the division for the materials, and you can provide the labor, the sweat equity, so that, we are moving away from wanting to do anything for ourselves. And everybody is sitting and saying, well, the THA didn't do this and the THA didn't do that. And while I'm not saying that the THA does not have its responsibility, I'm also saying that we as citizens have our responsibility as well in terms of developing our communities and ensuring that our communities are safe. Because even with the crime situation, we can do things to ensure that our communities remain safe. So community in Tobago means that working together for me, that coming together, that love, that unity. That is what it means to me. And I think that once we bring back those things, Tobago is going to be better off.
Right. And even as you touched on community, the fisher folk within the community play a huge role in developing the communities as well. And we saw that the fishermen came out and they have shown their dissatisfaction with this administration for not paying them for that oil spill in February. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, I really would not want to comment too much on it, but just to say, again, based on my knowledge of what transpired, sometimes we shoot ourselves in the leg. And why do I say that? I have been a part of many organizations, and accountability is one of the most important steps in distributing any kind of funds or that kind of thing. And if you have a situation where you have some fishermen claiming 1 point something million and that kind of thing, where you know that it's I don't want to say ridiculous. I mean, you have to, and then the reality is that the compensation for fishermen is not to be done by the THA, but by the international organization and all of that. So there are many things that are being spewed out there that are not accurate, that persons are trying to sensationalize. And I think that as a responsible THA, we have been very measured in our response. But the reality is a lot of what is being said out there is inaccurate. And, you know, these are some of the things that, as I said, as a politician, you know, you have to come to terms with and treat with. But sometimes it can really be disheartening when you hear persons who know better, who have the information, are trying to deliberately mislead the public and so on. Then, you know, that is cause for concern. But I can say that, yes, the fisher folk in Tobago, they contribute a lot to the development of Tobago. And we would want to have this situation with the fisher folk rectified. But as I'm speaking about that, when you open the program and you had to, well, I didn't listen on the day that you said the statements were made. I sat here and I was reflecting on what you said. And in my view, rather than asking for an apology, I think that what should have happened is that the MPs or officials see how they can assist, because maybe they did not think about it, maybe, you know, and the fact that it was highlighted on your program, I'm thinking that as one of the representatives of Tobago, and this is an issue that has been affecting Tobago fishermen who need the technical assistance to organize their claims and so on, then I think what could have happened is for the office of the MP to say, well, listen, we didn't think about it, but you know what? We're going to see what we can do to assist the process. Rather than asking and saying that, well, you know, categorically, well, they are not responsible and so on. Because in my view, it's about representation of the people of Tobago. I think that is what people vote for. If you're an MP for Tobago, while you're in the national parliament, you have to seek Tobago's interests, right? And that is the concern that I have. You have to seek Tobago's interests, even above your party interests, even above any kind of, you know, image that you think that, you know, you need to protect your image. I think you need to first focus on service to the people of Tobago. And therefore, even within the fact that they would have asked for you to clarify, I think that a part of that should have been, we are going to see if we can assist or how we can assist with the process so that the Tobagonians will benefit. The persons who voted me in and expect me to represent them, I am going to see what I can do from my office to assist, because it is no secret that we have had many challenges with central government in terms of giving us any relief for the same oil spill and this whole challenge of what has been happening so far. But I really don't want to comment too much on it.
But even as you talk about Tobago representation and having proper representation, is it possible that we would be seeing you representing Tobago in the parliament in the near future? I mean, I know that the party had a nomination that was open very recently in January. Did you put your hat in the ring for that?
No, I didn't. And it was because of personal reasons. You know, I think that at this time, I mentioned that my boys, I think that the age that my children are at, I really need to be close to them. So I had to make a personal decision in that regard. But, you know, I am always willing to serve. It is no secret that when I was Tobago officer, I championed Tobago teachers' cause at the level of the Teaching Service Commission, at the level of the Ministry of Education and so on, because I'm Tobago-centric. I believe that Tobago is always treated unfairly. In many instances, we are left on the back burner. And it is something that I believe that we have to really fight and try to get equity and equality for Tobago. So it is, I'm not going to dam the bridge because I'm hoping that God gives me the health and strength to be around. And maybe in the future, we don't know what could happen. But, you know, at this time, you know, I have some personal issues that I would prefer, you know, not to be in that.
Okay, Mr. Kerr, I want you to tell me a bit more about the Adopt a Bus Shed program. And through that program, do you think from your personal opinion that the objectives have been met or the progress you have been observing thus far?
All right. So the Adopt a Bus Shed program is an initiative to allow corporate Tobago, and not just corporate Tobago, even NGOs and so on, to be a part of the rehabilitation of our bus sheds in Tobago. When I assumed my position at the Division of Settlements, under my purview, bus sheds is one of the responsibilities.
Okay.
And when we started to do an audit of the bus sheds, we recognized that the vast majority of the bus sheds are in a state of disrepair. And the reality is that a budget will not be able to, you know, give us the kind of resources that we need to rehabilitate them. So we came up with the idea after we were approached by Dominion in the first instance, and Kiwanis, about 2 bus sheds in particular, say, you know what, this is a good idea. We should open this to the rest of Tobago. And Well, we have had really, really good responses from the business sector and so on. As a matter of fact, we are moving full speed ahead. We anticipate in the first quarter of this year that we should see a transformation with the bus sheds across the island. We have already received proposal from numerous business entities and so on. We have already organized for us to do brief interviews and so on for them to sign the MOU, so that we are in the process of doing that. And once we have done that, we have our PEU to work along with them to ensure that the work that they are doing is up to standard, it's safe and so on. So we anticipate that, you know, most of our bus sheds will get rehabilitation through this program, and, you know, at no cost to the division, really.
So, is it still open to the general public?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We still invite persons to, you know, adopt bus sheds. Most of the bus sheds on this end, we have a higher uptake on this end than on the windward end, right? So, but the program is across the island, even on the north side and so on. So we are encouraging persons to adopt a bus shed. Of course, you're going to get your mileage because you're going to get to brand it out and so on. And the process is very simple. We have removed a lot of the bureaucracy. We have made it very, very simple for persons to adopt a bus shed. Once you indicate your interest, and we have a short interview with you for us to have an idea of what it is that you're thinking about and so on. And we give you the parameters. We do an MOU with you, and then you are allowed to go ahead and do the renovations and the branding out and so on. The only stipulation in terms of the branding is that you would have to also include the THE logo in the branding, right? But we anticipate that it is going to be, you know, a successful program. It has already been a successful program because we have so many persons indicating their interest.
But you indicated that participating or competing or representing Tobago East is not necessarily in the cards for you right now. However, what about that THA election that is pending?
Well, I would normally, how should I put it? Allow myself to be guided by God. You know, so when the time is right, then that decision will be made. For now, I am focusing on service to the people because it is no secret, and I'm going to say it here, that the area that I live in, which is Roxborough Argyle, we have an absentee representative, right? And I would normally try my best to fill the gap with a lot of the issues that are in the area. And of course, I live there, so I'm familiar with the issues. And I have lobbied for a lot. If you know me well, you know that I lobby very, very passionately. So I've lobbied for a lot of things. I've lobbied for the lights at Lowido because I played football at Lowido Ground, right? So the lights at Lowido, I lobbied for that. We lighted the Delafort Anglican School, where some of the young fellas and they would normally sweat. Actually, I went and I sweat with them last night because I normally try to interact with the younger fellas and so on. I've lobbied for that sidewalk from Lowido to the Anglican school, where, you know, those children have to traverse on that stretch day, right? I've lobbied for, recently we had some holes and so on. I've lobbied for the road to be patched. I'm lobbying for the beach facility at Lowido for us to put facilities and so on. Because the thing about it is, if you are interested in service, you don't always look at yourself. You look at what you can bring to the community. The reality is that I'm in public life now. My role is different. And therefore, if I'm part of the executive council and I live in a community, then I would try to see what is best for that community. I can say, however, Shenell, that there's a greater possibility of me offering myself in the THA election because I'm already in it. I'm already offering service. And I don't think that in the first 4 years, Tobago will be where we would like it to be at. And I still believe that I have a very valuable contribution to make to the development of Tobago. So for now, I can say that I believe that I would be around, but I am still waiting on that guidance at that time. And of course, even if I offer myself, there's no guarantee because there are processes in terms of being selected as a candidate. But I think that, you know, I would want to be around to continue on the trajectory that we are at, because remember, we are trying to get Tobago to be the greatest island on the planet. And I think that I have some contributions to make to that.
Excellent. But we're going to take a quick break right here and we'll return with much more of this conversation. So guys, we'll see you soon.
I say, thanks a favor.
Welcome back to Beneath the Surface here on Tobago Updates, and we are chatting with Councillor Orlando Kerr. Now, Mr. Kerr, listening to you this morning, I'm getting that, advocacy, lobbying, being at the forefront is somewhat your character or somewhat your background. So I want you to tell me a bit more about that, growing up as a young child. Were you always this outspoken? Were you always the type of child that your parents had to say, I don't know what's wrong with this boy? Tell me about your upbringing and how that shaped you into where you are now.
All right, so I grew up in rural Tobago, in Dallaford, and believe it or not, I was very quiet. I would even say introverted, even at school and stuff at primary school. I wasn't very, boisterous. I was more a quiet child in the class, And when I went to secondary school, Scarborough Secondary, back in those days, you had to travel on the bus to get to school and so on. And you started to develop, you started to get out of that because, you're interacting with different people and so on, and you're meeting new people and new friends and so on. And then by the time I hit Signal Hill, you started to develop even a little more. I think my coming out started when I became the head boy of Signal Hill. When I was in sixth form, I was the head boy. And of course, being the head boy or the head prefect at the time, there were times that you had to adjust the assembly and that kind of thing. So I started to, get a little more confident and speaking in front of large groups of persons and so on. So I think that is where it started. And then when I became a teacher, I started in the union on the CSAC committee, that is the Sports, Cultural and Social Activities Committee, because I was always a person with a background in sports and so on. At the level of my community, I had served as the secretary of my football club. Believe it or not, I had served as the secretary of the Tobago Cricket Association at one time. And I was also a part of the Tobago Football Association at one time as well, because I always believe in sport. I love sports. So coming from that background and then going to the CSAC level as a person coming from Tobago and looking at the composition of the CSAC at the time, you are going to Trinidad to lobby for things for Tobago, and you are outnumbered and will be outvoted if you can't convince your colleagues that what is necessary. One of the most significant things that I did at CSAC, and I want to just mention this, is being able to bring a tutor sports to Tobago. Because I remember at the time, the argument was economically it did not make sense to bring 7 districts from Trinidad to Tobago for a sport when 1 district could go down to Trinidad. And I had to convince my colleagues that no, you can't always look at the economic value, you have to look at other things and whatever. And I was able to convince the committee to bring tutor sports to Tobago. Okay. Right? And after being a member of the CSAC committee, I became the chairman of the Tobago district of tutor. And in a quick time, I became the Tobago officer. Well, that is no secret of how that went. I was really advocating for Tobago teachers. And as I said, we had numerous actions and so on across Tobago. And that is when tutor in Tobago sort of shot into the spotlight. Because at the time, it was a struggle to get a lot of things that, now the benefits are being reaped and so on. But there were many things that were challenging to teachers in Tobago at the time. So I'm used to doing that. I remember one of the times that I went to the Teaching Service Commission, and I advocated in such strong terms for Tobago that on the other occasion, the commission prepared for the Tobago officer. And my colleagues were like, but the commission prepared for you? And I said, yes, because I went to the commission, I took the fight to them, and I said, you all are neglecting Tobago. And I gave them some stats. And by the next occasion we met, they were able to, they had a whole section just to deal with Tobago. So that is the level of commitment that I have to this island, because I grew up here, I intend to die here, and I would want this island to really be transformed. But I think that one of the things that I would really want to see happen in the future, regardless of how the relationship continues between Trinidad and Tobago, is a concerted effort, a real concerted effort to develop Tobago. I have traveled a lot. I've gone to most of the Caribbean islands. I've gone to many countries outside of the Caribbean. And when I look at the resources that we have, in terms of Trinidad and Tobago, I think that Tobago should be better off. I know the argument has always been by persons who are convenient that, Tobago gets enough. But if you look at the level of development of Trinidad as opposed to the level of development of Tobago, then you will understand that why would you cut the development budget of an island that is the island that is lesser developed? Logically, as any Tobagonian, regardless of your color, whether it's really supporting or whatever, as a Tobagonian, because I've appealed to Tobagonians to be Tobagonian first, that you must lobby for Tobago. Your party should come second, right? But, when you look at what is happening in terms of our development budget, you give an island 200 million for development, and you're renovating a hotel in Trinidad for 400 million. As a Tobagonian, you should feel insulted. Not as a PNM or a TPP or a PDP or any, as a Tobagonian, you should feel insulted. You should feel incensed. You should feel angry because it tells you where you are placed in this national situation. And that is the kind of fight that I'm talking about. That is the kind of passion that I have for Tobago. Because as I said, Tobago is near and dear to my heart.
But when you talk about the type of fight and passion that Tobagonians need to have in advocating for Tobago, regardless of where they stand, you also indicated previously that you would be willing to throw your hat in the ring for that THA election. But what do you think you can do as a area representative that you aren't able to do as a councillor?
Well, as an area representative, remember, as a councillor, I am not the area rep, which is something different. And while I would lobby informally, and to be quite honest, I must say that the Executive Council has listened to my appeals in terms of what is needed in my community. I think as an area rep, I would be better placed to do that, right? So that if the time comes that I decide that I'm going to do that, then I would be better placed to make those requests.
Understood. And even as you are there, you said you have advocated for a few things that has happened. Are there certain things that you would still like to see within the district that every time you drive up and down, it pains your heart, that you really want to see change there?
Well, I think that you have to manage change, and you have to also be realistic in your expectations. And that is something that, well, the average Tobagonian has to also adopt. And if we are able to accomplish those things that I mentioned in the first 4 years, because the reality is I think a lot of persons don't understand governance. 4 years in governance is no time. And I have often heard people saying that the party's mantra was, let me fix this. I think that Tobago does not understand how many things have been fixed, even with the limited resources that we have. When you have a situation where in almost every division, everything needs to be fixed, with a situation where you have a budget that is limited in terms of resources, then I would say that, we have done well. Normally when we have meetings, I say to my colleagues, because many of them, they're like, oh gosh, we really want to do this and we really want to do that. And they're stressing and so on. I said, don't stress. I said, because we have done a lot. And I said that Tobagonians need to open their eyes and look and see what is happening. Don't study about what people are saying, because a lot of what is being said, especially in terms of the politics, is misinformation. I mean, some of the things peeve me, and let me give one example. When I hear Mr. Dennis talking about the pavilion at Goodwood, it hurts my heart. You know why it hurts my heart? Because Mr. Dennis is well aware that pavilion was being built by UDCOT. And after the election, UDCOT, I can't say that they were instructed, but they pulled out of the projects that they were doing in Tobago. They just simply said that we're done. Who instructed UDCOT to do that? That is left for the public to infer. But you're coming now and talking about why we're not finishing it. You know why we're not finishing it. So the THA now has to find money to go and finish it for Tobagonians. And as we have done and this THA has continued to do, we are putting resources into many things that we don't have responsibility for. We continue to put resources into national security, for example, right? Because we cannot allow national security to deteriorate on the island. And because we have to ensure that the citizens of Tobago are safe and so on, we continue to put money into national resources, national security. These things are not always publicized because you're busy just trying to do the work and not, publicizing these things. But there are many things that the THA does that we do not have responsibility for, even with the limited resources that we have. And then you have persons who are trying to paint a narrative as though the THA does not care. You're building a baccalaureate facility, indoor facility, but you're not building it. You have neglected Tobago for so many years. And that is something when I was a teacher, I understand, because we take children down to Trinidad for finals and so on, and they have to play in an indoor facility. And it's the first time some of them play in an indoor facility on a wooden surface, right? And after so many years, you decide you're going to build an indoor facility, and then you're not going to build it to international standards, right? So obviously, when we came into office, we would not accept that. And it not be a saying that it shouldn't be built. We are saying, let us sit and do something good for the people of Tobago. So that when the politics is at play and people coming out there and they're trying to give impressions about a lot of things, I mean, I know that they say politics has a morality of its own, but I think each of us is responsible for our souls, and we'll have to answer some questions when the time comes. And one of the things that I'm not going to do as a politician, I'm not embracing it, because at that time it was difficult for me to refer to myself as a politician. I am not going to go out there and lie to the people. I prefer not to say anything, but I'm not going to go out there and deliberately lie to people and try to mislead people. And that is what they are about. And that is what irks me very much, because I'm certain, 150% certain, that Mr. Ansel Dennis knows that Yuri got pulled out of that building, that pavilion in Goodwood. And he knows that is why it was stalled. And he knows that Yuriko took forever to hand over the documents to the THA. He knows that. But he's out there trying to purport that the THA is not doing that.
Understood.
And these are the kind of things that would really irk me.
And Mr. Kerr, talk to us about what has been your biggest challenge thus far, because we understand you had to shift from the advocate to the politician. You are a husband, you have children that you seem very protective of, and there are going to come the times when the administration is in scandal and there are people who may not like you, they may not like your wife, they may not like your ideologies, and the easiest way for them to release that is on your children. How do you navigate being a father and a politician?
But I think that it is difficult at times, but I have a very close relationship with my children. I try to spend a lot of time with them, and that is the reason why I said I will not offer myself as a MP, right? And I try my best to teach them a lot, because I remember a lot of things that I was taught by my father. My father had some sayings that I even believe in today, and it has molded me to be the kind of person that I am. Some people think that I'm too principled. I'm a very principled person. I believe in being on time. I believe in not wasting people's time. I believe in being honest with people and letting people know, what you really can realistically do for them. Although that might not be the best mold for a politician, because, you might tell persons, well, I really can't help, I will see what I could do. I will try my best, and that kind of thing. But over the years and so on, I think that the experiences that I've gained in this office has actually taught me new things, and I continue to develop and grow in this position. It has been challenging at times, to be quite honest. I think that when there was that whole bacchanal with the split, I doubted myself. I said, this is what I did not want to get involved in, And then when we had the issue with the recording, right? I said, I started to think that I was in Russia, one of these places where, you have people having secret tapings and bugging rooms. And I said, I didn't sign up for this. I thought that, you're going to get bad talk and you're going to get cuss and they're going to tell you everything that they think they know about you. But I didn't sign up for the level of, you're thinking that somebody might be listening to your phone calls, or the level of you going to a room and you're not sure if there are devices that are taping your meeting. I'm like, when did we get to that desperate position, you know. So those are some of the things that I had to struggle with mentally, because I felt that, you know, I didn't sign up for that part of it. I know the bad talk is normal. You will get bad talk. People will say all kind of things about you, things that they know, things that they think they know, things that they don't know. That is okay. But I think part of the other part of the thing with having my colleagues' homes being searched on a whims and fancy and that kind of thing, you know, those things really, really at the time played on my mental, because I'm like, this is too much. This is going a little too far. But I have since, you know, been able to come to terms with some of those things. And I am ready and willing to continue to press on for the development and the good of Tobago.
Okay. And Mr. Kerr, as we continue the conversation, we're going to take a really quick break and we'll be right back. Just stick with us and remember to share the live, share the live, share the live.
Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. Now we continue our Beneath the Surface series, and as we wrap up the discussion this morning, remember that we are chatting with Councillor Orlando Kerr. Now, a lot has happened in a short space of time, and one of those things, as Luke indicated, was the move from education to the Division of Settlement, Public Utilities and Rural Development. Now, were you expecting that? Because I heard a lot of persons within the public domain saying, well, we thought that they would have made her a secretary, and, you know, based on the fact that you've been known to be a leader in the community as well as a businessman. Persons came out saying that they expected that from you. Was the shift expected, and did you welcome it, or do you feel like it was sort of like a slap in the face?
Well, I know that the chief had indicated that he was going to do some shifting around. And once the chief indicates that, then you prepare yourself to go anyway, right? It wasn't, I should say, it wasn't a slap in the face, because I'm prepared to serve wherever I go. And that is why when I was moved to settlements, I accepted my position and I just started to run with whatever projects that we had to do. I continued with the street lighting and the electrification that Assistant Secretary George was doing. And then we had some other initiatives that we started to roll out. So for me, it was just a transition. You know, it was just a movement and a change of mindset, because you have to start to look at things differently. You know, when you were in education, there were some objectives that you wanted to achieve. Now you're in settlements, there are different objectives that you want to achieve. But it's about delivery to the people. So regardless of whether you're in education or you are in settlements, it's about trying to deliver to the people of Tobago. So for me, it wasn't a major.
Right. And one of your colleagues, Assemblyman Megan Morris, we were told that she might not be a part of this Beneath the Surface series. But we even had yesterday Assemblyman Terrence Baines, and he indicated that he's not necessarily looking to put himself back up to office, but he still presented himself here to account to the people. Why do you think that some persons may be unwilling to participate in a Beneath the Surface series like this one?
Well, I would not want to try to offer a reason, or even if I don't know that is the situation either, and I really would prefer not to see, because, you know, people have different reasons why things happen, and, you know, I really don't know. So very often, if I'm asked a question and I don't have the information, I simply don't try to offer an explanation, because sometimes you offer an explanation and you put your foot in your mouth because you just simply don't have the information. Okay. So I would not want to even try to think about why not. If it is indeed the case, then, you know, whoever individual will know why they don't want to be a part of it.
And Mr. Kerr, wrapping up, I want you to articulate to us and the Tobago population and the wider region viewing this show. When you think about the island of Tobago, what does Tobago mean to you personally? Well,
I can tell you that I absolutely love this island. You know, recently we went on site visits with the Division of Tourism. And I went to some of the waterfalls that I have not been to since living here. I went to Castara, I went to Palatove, and I'm a little bit ashamed to say I did not visit those waterfalls before, right? Because we have some plans to, you know, try to transform those places, you know, and so on. But I think I was really blown away by the one at Lamy Road.
Okay.
That is like close to where I live, and it is absolutely so beautiful. And I love Tobago because Tobago is a naturally beautiful place. And we have beautiful people. I think that there has been some shift in terms of, how people on the island interact with each other. But I don't think that all is lost. I think that we can go back to that loving, close-knit community that, we used to be, even in the face of development. There are some things that I believe that must be retained, even as you develop. So we can develop our infrastructure. We can develop, even in terms of, our education system and all these things, we can improve those things. But there are some things I believe that we must hold on to. There are some places I believe that we must keep it as natural as possible. When we are looking at the waterfalls and so on, one of the things that I will be totally against is like putting too much concrete and nothing in those areas. You want to remain those areas to remain as naturally beautiful as possible. I think that many Tobagonians don't understand what we have. We have a very beautiful island. The other day I was driving home, and there were about 3 or 4 cars in front of me, and I saw someone throwing out a box of KFC just going up before we enter into John Dale. And the only reason why I didn't stop the vehicle, I didn't know which vehicle it was. And that has nothing to do with being a councillor, or that has always been me. I am a person that will stop that vehicle and say, why did you simply throw a box out on the highway? That has nothing to do with my present position. I have always been a person who has been in fierce defense of Tobago, because that is not what Tobagonians do. I know Tobagonians to be people who are clean, who take pride in their surroundings and so on, right? I can't say with any certainty that it was a Tobagonian who did it, but whether it was a Tobagonian or it was a visitor, it hurt me to see I'm driving up the highway and somebody threw out a box right on the highway. Why would you do that? So these are the things that I love Tobago. I really love Tobago. As I said, I intend to live in Tobago until I die, right? And I think that the people of Tobago have to love the island as well, and assist in the transformation of this island.
Understood.
The executive of the THA are leaders, but the reality is that our transformation has a lot more to do with the people than with the persons who are the leaders, right? The leaders set the policy, but who carries out the policy, right? We know that there's a challenge with productivity on the island. And I think that we have to do introspection as Tobagonians. And when we go to work, we do our honest day's work for an honest day's pay. And in us doing our little part as Tobagonians, this island will realize being the greatest little island on the planet.
And we have to wrap up this morning, but one of the things that Tobagonians want to know when it comes to the housing crisis on the island, this administration advocated to be able to provide affordable housing, specifically to young professionals. And I believe that there was a program announced for public officers to be able to benefit from lands or houses. Can you clarify that? From the TH, I believe it's a program under the Office of the Chief Secretary. Can you please tell Tobagonians about that and how they can possibly stand to benefit from that?
Well, I don't have all the information. As I said, when I answer questions, I like to have all the information, but I can tell you that initiative is being rolled out, right? I know that there are some lands that have been identified for that. I can't give the specifics. I know that housing and so on, there are some developments that plan to be rolled out soon in terms of housing and even land distribution. As you are aware, we would have distributed a lot of lands already, and the intention is to continue to do that, because the reality is that the budget for building houses in Tobago this year is $2 million. So that in many instances, if Tobagonians want to construct their own homes, we are going to try our best to accommodate by giving them lands and allow them to construct their own homes, because the division simply does not have the resources to construct homes for Tobagonians. And as I said, I don't want to beat the central government again. I think that horse has gone. We have to try to find creative ways of trying to help Tobagonians, because that is what we are about doing. So, those things are in train and will be realized very soon.
Understood. Well, we want to thank you so much for being here this morning. We want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to ask you the intimate questions, right? But guys, we want to thank you also for being a part of this morning's discussion. We want to thank you for your likes, your shares, and your comments, and all that you have been doing to make Tobago Updates the #1 broadcaster right here on the island of Tobago. Look, is there anything you want to say before we go head out?
Well, Shenell, today's interview was a very interesting one. Like I said, it's always a pleasure to sit down and really chat with the politicians because it shows transparency, it shows accountability, and because it doesn't translate well to the public when you only pop up on TV to ask for people to vote for you. Nobody resonates with that. But it's good to, be courageous to sit down and face the questions and answer them as transparent as possible. So, Mr. Kerr, good job to you today. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Right,
also.
and we are trying our best to ask the questions that you want asked. So if you feel like maybe we hadn't asked some of the questions that you wanted asked, you have the opportunity moving forward, and you already had it, to put your questions in the comment section, and we would be sure to ask them the questions,
Correct.
right? We would be asking them the questions. And so tomorrow we look forward to speaking with Assemblyman Ian Pollard, who is also the Secretary for the Division of Settlement, Public Utilities, and Rural Development. Guys, again, we want to say thank you and have a great day.